Imagine you're tuning into a podcast. The host just said something dramatic like this. This week in the circles of lawyers, the realm of YouTubers, and on the global stage, one overseas Chinese blind lawyer hero files a lawsuit halfway around the world, from the US to Japan, and it's all because of a single video uploaded by a famous Chinese YouTuber who cannot go back to China because of his criticism about his home country. Welcome back to DFTW, the right place for viewers to understand world affairs from a unique perspective. Let's unpack this case in a way that lets you grab a coffee instead of showing up in court for the legalese. Before we talk about the mentioned video, court hearings, and other hearsays, let's meet the players, because it isn't just some random internet squabble. They are real people with real history and reputations that go beyond a single headline. Chen Guangcheng, nicknamed the Blind Barefoot Lawyer, is now living in the United States. We cannot simply label him as an anti-China activist. Rather, he is better described as a civil rights activist and legal reform advocate who has criticized certain Chinese government policies and local officials, particularly regarding China's birth control measures in the rural areas of the Chinese mainland. He has mainly challenged abuses by local authorities, such as harsh enforcement of the one-child policy, forced abortions, and restrictions on rural citizens' legal rights. He worked within China's legal system as a self-taught lawyer, helping ordinary people defend their rights, earning him the nickname Barefoot Lawyer. Because he criticized Chinese authorities and fled to the US, he became a global symbol of human rights advocacy. That's why some people abroad frame him as anti-government or critical of China. He is not against China as a country, he is against government abuses and fights for legal reforms and human rights. Chen Guangcheng was born in 1971 in a rural village in Shandong province, near the hometown of Confucius. He lost his sight as an infant due to a fever and grew up blind, which is important because it becomes part of both his public image and, confusingly, the center of the new lawsuit. But here's where it gets interesting. Rather than let blindness define his life as a limitation, he taught himself law and became a civil rights activist, helping ordinary rural people stand up against abuses by local officials. The press sometimes calls him a barefoot lawyer, a term in China for self-taught legal advocates who help people without resources or access to formal legal help. Several reasons made him world-renowned. Around 2005, Chen helped organize legal action against local authorities in Linyi region, Shandong province, for harsh enforcement of China's one-child policy. That case became internationally symbolic of grassroots rights defense. He spent years under detention and house arrest for his activism. In 2012, he carried out a dramatic escape from house arrest and sought protection at the US Embassy in Beijing, a moment that made global headlines. Eventually, he relocated to the United States, where he has continued speaking and writing about the rule of law and human rights. He has appeared on the cover of major international magazines and has been recognized as one of the world's influential figures. So he is not some random internet personality. Instead, he is a globally recognized civil rights figure, one whose reputation carries symbolic weight on issues such as the rule of law, disability rights, and human rights activism. It is worth noting that China no longer enforces the harsh birth control policy that used to allow a couple to have only one child. On the contrary, the country is encouraging young couples in their 20s, 30s, and even 40s to have more babies to avoid China's demographic crisis. If China had done that much earlier, Chen Guangcheng would not have become so famous. Now, let us meet the other side of our story, Wang Zhi'an, a former CCTV reporter. CCTV is China's state television broadcaster. After leaving traditional media, he relocated to Japan and built a presence as a self-media commentator, producing political and current affairs content on platforms like YouTube. He has a sizable following in the Chinese language online world and is known for sharp commentary, long monologues, and sometimes controversial takes. In other words, he's part of a growing class of independent political commentators who operate outside state media and outside traditional newsroom structures. That independence gives him freedom, but also risk. Because of his sharp remarks, he cannot return to the Chinese mainland, although he still holds a Chinese passport, and China's unalienable island, Taiwan, does not welcome him either. As he himself said, he is one of the very few, if not the only one, whom the PRC and the ROC have banned. Here's where things get interesting and a little surreal. In August 2025, Wang Zhi'an posted a video questioning whether Chen Guangcheng is truly blind. In December 2025, the latter filed a defamation lawsuit against him in the Tokyo District Court. The first court hearing was scheduled for February 10, 2026. Chen Guangcheng is reportedly seeking around 3.3 billion Japanese yen, roughly over $2 million in damages. The core allegation is that Wang Zhi'an's video claimed Chen is not genuinely blind and used selective clips to support that claim. The blind lawyer argues that the video constitutes fabrication and defamation, harming his reputation and attacking his personal identity. That's the legal heart of the case. Let's acknowledge the surreal layer here. A blind civil rights lawyer, known worldwide for standing up to authorities, is now suing a YouTuber in Tokyo for calling him not actually blind. If you pitched this as a Netflix series, someone would say, maybe tone it down a bit. But this is the internet age. And in the internet age, reputation is fragile, global, and algorithm-driven. One viral clip can undo decades of carefully built credibility. It does not matter much whether Chen Guangcheng is really blind. The problem is that if he is not blind but pretending, millions who believed him were blind. That matters more. And unlike old-school rumor mills, YouTube comment sections don't disappear after the village meeting ends. It's easy to treat this as internet gossip, but some deeper themes are hiding beneath the surface. Defamation used to mean newspapers printing something false. Now it can mean a 20-minute video uploaded from someone's apartment that reaches millions overnight. The law hasn't entirely caught up with the speed and scale of digital media. Courts now have to decide when online commentary crosses into defamation. That's not just a China issue. That's a global one. Free speech versus accountability. This case also raises the classic debate about free speech and accountability. How far does free speech go? Does being a public figure mean you're fair game for aggressive claims? When does asking questions become spreading falsehoods? Different countries draw the line differently. Japan, where the case is being heard, has its own legal standards for defamation and personal reputation. So this lawsuit isn't just about two people, it's also about how legal systems interpret speech in an age of digital megaphones. There's another layer that's easy to miss. Questioning someone's disability isn't just a factual debate. It can feel deeply personal. Chen Guangcheng's blindness has always been part of his public identity. It's part of how he became known, and how his story resonated internationally. It is his core asset, worth at least millions of dollars. To claim that it's fabricated is not just to dispute a detail, it challenges the authenticity of his life narrative, and may put him in difficulties. That's heavy. That is a controversy with consequences. Wang Zhi'an isn't new to controversy. In 2024, he faced backlash over comments made during Taiwanese election coverage, leading to his Taiwan entry permit being revoked for several years. That episode showed something important: his commentary style often pushes boundaries. Supporters might call it bold truth-telling. Critics might call it reckless. Either way, it means this lawsuit didn't emerge in a vacuum. It landed in an environment where Wang Zhi'an already had a reputation for sharp and sometimes provocative commentary. Here is a question: why do people outside China care? Because both figures have international profiles, just in very different ways. Chen Guangcheng became globally famous through human rights advocacy, a dramatic escape, and speeches abroad. Wang Zhi'an built influence through digital media, diaspora politics, and online commentary. This lawsuit brings together two eras: the old model of international human rights activism, and the new model of borderless digital commentary. And it's happening not in Beijing or Washington, but in Tokyo. Globalization meets YouTube. What could happen? A few possible outcomes are visible. Suppose Chen Guangcheng wins, Wang Zhi'an could be ordered to pay damages. It might reinforce that online commentators cannot make serious factual claims without strong evidence. If Wang Zhi'an wins, the court might rule that the video falls within acceptable commentary or protected speech. They may settle it privately as well. Many civil cases settle before reaching a final judgment. Whatever happens, the ruling will likely be watched closely, not because it changes geopolitics, but because it touches on digital speech, diaspora politics, and cross-border legal accountability. Let us zoom out a bit for a bigger picture. A U.S. blind activist from rural China, an overseas Chinese YouTuber who used to be a former state journalist, and a courtroom in Japan, a third country, none of whom holds a passport. And more dramatically, there are tens of millions of audience members scattered across the US, China, Japan, and beyond. If you were designing a case study on globalization in 2026, that would be it. It is what happens when media decentralizes, reputation becomes algorithmic, national boundaries don't limit speech, and legal consequences still cross borders. Here's the thing, it's easy to laugh at the irony. It's easy to frame it as internet drama. But underneath it is something serious. In a world where anyone can publish, anyone can also be accused. Information moves instantly, but correction moves slowly, and identity, especially disability, activism, or moral credibility, becomes part of someone's public brand. Attacking that identity can have real consequences. So this case isn't just about whether one man is blind. It's about whether digital speech carries responsibility. It's about whether reputation has borders. And it's about how modern conflicts don't just play out in parliaments or protests anymore. Sometimes they play out in a YouTube upload, then in a courtroom in a place thousands of miles away, heard instantly at every corner of the world.